Thank you so much for being here today. I'm excited to talk about this concept of not only just probiotics, which we hear a lot about, but also prebiotics and postbiotics. So we know that there are trillions and trillions of microorganisms that live in the body. And as practitioners, we are always working, especially as root cause medicine practitioners, we're always working to help clients to achieve that good balance to prevent overgrowth of harmful pathogens and keeping that good balance of commensal. So we'll talk a little bit about that today. Adrienne has already gone over the copyright and the disclaimer, so I'm going to jump right past that and we'll jump right into prebiotics. So this concept of prebiotics was introduced in around 1995 because there was a lot of research going on. We were finding some really important facts about prebiotics. The interest has, only continued to grow. So there's more and more research being done around not just probiotics, but again, prebiotics. Once at one time, we thought kind of prebiotics only affected the gut and the GI tract. But now what we know is that prebiotics really indirectly affect most systems in the body, which makes sense because we know that the gut really impacts most systems in the body. So a few important things to note that sort of have to be true, so to speak, for prebiotics or for a nutrient to be a prebiotic, to be considered a prebiotic, is that it has to be seen as food for the probiotic. So prebiotics make sense because of the name. It's what feeds the probiotics, helps them to grow and multiply. And then again, in order to be classified as a prebiotic, a nutrient also has to be resistant to digestion and absorption. So I'm going to give you a list in a few minutes of some prebiotics that are common, that we commonly see added to things in supplements, and also ways that we can get those and educate our patients on those through food. But one of the key things, again, is that the nutrient or substance has to be resistant to digestion and absorption. It also has to be able to withstand the very acidic pH in the stomach and not be, killed by that acid. It also has to be able to be fermented by the gut bacteria. And we'll get into this a little bit more, but this is really where a large part of the benefit of prebiotics lie, is in that fermentation process and in the development of metabolites, things like short chain fatty acids. And then also prebiotics, in order to be considered a prebiotic, it has to be able to, of course, impact the growth and the function of the gut in a positive way. So down here, you can see, and you'll see throughout my slides, I've linked different articles that you may want to dive a little bit deeper into this. So this is a great article just talking about both prebiotics and probiotics and looking at it from a root cause medicine perspective. So I'd encourage you to check out some of these articles. Many of these that I'm linking are written and published on our Rupa Health magazine. One of my favorite places to go when I am just researching things, because really all the research has been done for us. We have these amazing writers and they write these comprehensive articles that are super easy to understand. You can even share them with patients because they're a very easy read, but all of the research is linked in those articles. So if you didn't know about that, definitely check those out. Okay, so now let's talk about, when you're educating your clients, where can they get sources of prebiotics? You can see this kind of comprehensive list here. Bananas, garlic, artichokes, Jerusalem artichokes specifically have a very high prebiotic content. And I'll give you a little more information on that in just a few minutes. But we should be educating our clients on where they can get these in the diet, because we don't always want to just be getting supplements, right? Supplements should be used just as they say, as a supplement to a good diet. So this is a list that you could share with your clients as to where they can get more prebiotics. Now, looking at the types of prebiotics, there are various types. I've got them listed here on the screen. I'm going to go through and just hit some highlights of each of these. But first, inulin and the fructooligosaccharides, or FOS. These are two types of fructan prebiotics, and these occur naturally in plants like onion, garlic, asparagus, bananas, artichoke, many of those things that were just listed on the previous slide, excuse me. But inulin consumption really helps and has been shown to help increase the production of bifidobacterium. Now, bifidobacterium is one of the most important commensals in the gut. We'll talk about it a little bit more in detail in just a bit. But one thing about bifidobacterium when we have good, healthy levels is it helps to prevent pathogens from becoming overgrown, and it also protects the intestinal barrier. Now, I did include an article here linked, this first article. In this study here, it looked at participants who consumed vegetables that were rich in inulin for 2 weeks and found that they had a 3.8-fold increase in bifidobacterium. So it's a pretty big increase over only 2 weeks' time. It's a very small amount of time. And then previous studies have also shown that those Jerusalem artichokes that I mentioned are very high in inulin and that they increase the bifidobacterium as well. So that's a really good source of inulin. Another thing about inulin is it has antioxidant properties that are specific to the GI tract, specific to the gut. It's very protective also against something called lipopolysaccharides. You may see those abbreviated as LPS. Now, these are enzymes that are produced by pathogenic bacteria. Generally, it's a gram-negative bacteria. That if these sort of harmful bacteria get overgrown, they release these LPS molecules, these lipopolysaccharides, and they are extremely inflammatory. So this inulin, having the antioxidant properties, has also been shown to be protective against those LPS molecules. Now, moving on to the fructooligosaccharides, they naturally occur in plants like really the same ones: onion, garlic, asparagus, bananas, artichokes, all of those. But they have been shown to help with constipation. Excuse me, if you have a client who is perhaps constipated, this can be a good addition, adding in some of those foods. It helps not only to increase the frequency of the stool, but also the quality of the stool. Some research has shown that a dose of around 4 to 15 grams of fructooligosaccharides can improve constipation and also stimulate the growth of commensal bacteria. Another thing that has been found with these fructooligosaccharides is they help to increase mineral absorption. And they also have been shown to decrease cholesterol levels. So again, lots and lots of benefits here. Next up is the galacto-oligosaccharides. These are primarily found in dairy products, in legumes. These can also increase levels of bifidobacterium, another important feature of those. They also break down fats and carbohydrates and help to really facilitate the growth of and the function of the colonic cells. So those are adding in some foods that have the galacto-oligosaccharides can also be really helpful. Now, resistant starch. So resistant starches, these are carbohydrates that don't break down into sugar and are not absorbed in the small intestine. Okay, so these are similar to insoluble fiber in that they pass through most of the digestive system unchanged. And then when they get to the colon, this is where they ferment and they produce these short chain fatty acids and other metabolites that I'll go over in just a little bit. But resistant starches are very similar to fiber in their chemical structure, but again, they're a starch, not a fiber. They do produce those short chain fatty acids that really help to create this anti-inflammatory environment and an environment where these beneficial bacteria can really grow and thrive. You're going to find resistant starches in foods like potatoes, raw oats, whole grains, legumes, things like that. Next up is your fibrous carbohydrates. These are very similar in that they are resistant to digestion, but fibrous carbohydrates are considered things like cauliflower, broccoli, green beans, cabbage, Brussels sprouts. So really more of your cruciferous vegetables is what you want to think more as your fibrous carbohydrates. So again, just to recap on the resistant starches and fibrous carbohydrates are broken down and fermented in the colon or the large intestine. So they pass through until they get there. And when they're fermented and broken down, that's when the magic happens. And all of these really important metabolites, like short chain fatty acids, are produced. They do also help to regulate the pH in the gut. They help with mineral absorption. They help with glucose and protein metabolism. And again, have anti-inflammatory benefits. Guar is another prebiotic. This is a type of soluble fiber that, again, ferments in the large intestine, produces those short chain fatty acids. Now, we generally see guar usually added to things like dairy products, like ice cream, dressings, gravies. It can be used as a thickening agent. So sometimes you'll see guar added to products like that, but then you could also have your client take some guar. A lot of times you'll see guar in supplements, especially in powders. There may be different combination products. And then polyphenols, believe it or not, polyphenols are actually considered prebiotics because they support the growth and the activity of your commensal bacteria. Very similar to other prebiotics like fiber and resistant starch, very similar to that. However, they do have added benefits. And this is probably where you think more about polyphenols, is that they have anti-inflammatory properties and antioxidant properties. So they have some added benefits, but are actually classified as prebiotics. Okay, moving on to just some other kind of specific health benefits of prebiotics themselves. In terms of the central nervous system, they help to increase memory. They help to increase memory recall, learning, mood, and they've also been shown to slow the process of dementia. In terms of cardiovascular benefits, they help to lower cholesterol and triglycerides. We talked a lot about the benefits to the GI tract, but they do reduce the risk of colon cancer, IBS type symptom, or excuse me, type symptoms, sorry, and inflammatory bowel diseases like Crohn's. So it helps with those symptoms. And then musculoskeletal, they help to increase the absorption of calcium into the bones to strengthen the bones. As far as the immune system, they do help to increase immune markers and strengthen the immune system. And then for our skin, they actually have been shown to be able to reduce the risk of atopic dermatitis, which is a form of eczema, and increase collagen and keratin formation in the skin, and also aid in water retention in the skin. So lots of really great benefits for the different systems in the body. Now, I did include just a few articles in this presentation. This article here discusses a little bit more on the types and the mechanism of action of prebiotics. And again, that there are benefits, especially in patients with IBS and in patients with Crohn's disease. If you want to learn a little bit more about those particular types of patients and prebiotics, then I would encourage you to, I've linked the article here. I would encourage you to go and just check that out. And then moving on to probiotics. So we know that probiotics are strains of beneficial bacteria, right? And these help to really keep the pathogenic bacteria in check. And the way that they do that is they compete with these adhering sites on the epithelial surface, and they also compete for nutrients. So one way that I learned years ago, someone explained this to me and it just really clicked and made sense, is when we think of the balance in the microbiome and when we think of giving probiotics and how that can help prevent some of the pathogenic bacteria from getting overgrown, if you can imagine the gut is like a parking lot and there are only a certain amount of spaces. It's only a certain amount. We can't add more to a specific parking lot. There are only a certain amount of spaces. Think of that as the adhering sites. So the more good bacteria that we have, that helps to prevent those pathogenic bacteria from coming in, and it really competes with those adhering sites. So that was a good, for me at least, visual that I wanted to share with you guys. A few other things, probiotics do improve the function of the intestinal barrier. So what probiotics do is they modulate the intestinal epithelial cells and those tight junctions between the cells in order to help maintain that gut barrier. So This helps to prevent increased intestinal permeability or leaky gut, and can also be a treatment for, again, leaky gut or increased permeability. And then lastly, they also help to modulate the immune system. They improve the production or increase the production of secretory IgA. Next up, this is a article discussing how probiotics help to restore the intestinal barrier. It points out things like they affect the renewal of intestinal epithelial cells. They also help to make those cell connections closer, and they increase the tight junction proteins and also mucin. And then just one more article that I wanted to share here on how probiotics benefit our immune system. So these intestinal immune cells interact with the probiotics that we consume. And then this interaction can improve the host immune system, immune function, and just overall homeostasis. And again, I've linked these articles so you can go back and take a closer look at them. Food sources, you're probably very familiar with where you can get probiotics in your food, and you can educate your clients on this. I've got a list here of the most common food sources. There's also one of those Rupa Health magazine articles here that I've linked for you. And I would encourage you, especially articles like this, these are great articles to send to your patients, especially when we're talking about maybe the why behind probiotics, why they're important, and then how they can get them naturally through their diet. Just helps you with educating your client. If you can maybe briefly educate them verbally, but then send them a resource like this, I think it's always super helpful. Now, I wanted to just briefly mention a few specific strains of probiotics. This is by no means an exhaustive list. There are tons and tons of different strains, but I wanted to just mention a few and give you a little bit of information around these individual supplements and strains. So bifidobacteria, this species in general, is very important for supporting the immune system, for, again, limiting growth of pathogenic bacteria. And bifidobacteria also helps to break down lactose. Now, looking at specific strains, this first one, Bifidobacteria animalis, this one is found in yogurts often, also in different probiotic strains. Most of your kind of general probiotics are going to be lactobifido strains. And then this one helps with not only immunity and digestion, but also has been shown to help fight off foodborne bacteria, foodborne pathogens, things that cause food poisoning and things like that. And then next up is Bifidobacteria breve. This one is not only found in the digestive tract, but it's also found in the vaginal cavities. Often I get asked about this. I'm sure as practitioners, you get asked about this by patients because there's a lot of advertisement for specific probiotics for vaginal health. So you may see, if you have a client that's having some issues with, say, bacterial vaginosis, then they may be looking at probiotics, or you may be recommending probiotics that have this Bifidobacteria breve strain in them. Also, this particular strain helps the body to absorb nutrients by fermenting sugars, and it also breaks down plant fibers to make them more digestible. Those are some benefits of that specific strain. Next up is the Bifidobacteria longum. And this one's found just in the digestive tract. It does help to break down carbohydrates, and it also has antioxidant properties. Maybe a good strain to use if you're looking for or wanting to even add another antioxidant to your client's regimen. This one has antioxidant properties, so that might be a good option. And then lactobacillus. So you see I've got 3 strains listed here. I think there are over 200 strains or species of lactobacillus, so lots and lots more. And there is actually, if you look here, I've linked 2 articles, one regarding Bifidobacterium and then one regarding lactobacillus. And this breaks down even more of the strains so that you can take more of a comprehensive look. But bacillus strains in general produce lactase, which is an enzyme that breaks down lactose. So they can be beneficial there. They also produce lactic acid, and lactic acid can help control the environment of pathogenic organisms in the body and also helps to increase the absorption of nutrients and minerals. Now, the one that we see the most, hear the most about, talk the most about is Lactobacillus acidophilus, right? It's in many, many of your probiotics. This one's not only found in the digestive tract, but also in the vaginal cavity. Again, if it is someone who is maybe having some issues with, let's say, bacterial vaginosis, then taking Lactobacillus acidophilus can definitely help. This one's often found in yogurts as well. It not only helps, again, in digestion, it helps in that balance in the vaginal cavity. It also helps with IBS, especially IBS-D, so those patients who are having diarrhea. And then there's also some studies showing that it helps in patients with eczema. It helps with their eczema and their skin health. Next is Lactobacillus plantarum. This one helps with just kind of overall digestive wellness and nutrient absorption. And then Lactobacillus rhamnosus. This one has been very widely studied. It's known for helping to inhibit pathogenic strains, boosting the immune system, improving the integrity of the gut lining. So again, helping with increased intestinal permeability or leaky gut, and just restoring the gut microbiome. It is also often used to help with regulating bowel movements. So constipation or diarrhea, also with gas and bloating, this particular strain can be helpful. So you think your IBS type patients. It has been shown to be beneficial for the oral microbiome in patients with periodontal disease, and then also people with ulcerative colitis. There's some studies showing its benefit there. Now, I did not include, because this class is not about specific conditions, but I did want to mention this, especially if you are maybe working with clients on their gut health. Maybe you're doing some testing and they have H. pylori, which is so very common. There are a few strains of Lactobacillus that have been shown to be supportive at eradicating H. pylori. And those are Lactobacillus reuteri, Lactobacillus casei, and Lactobacillus brevis. So if you want to, again, look more into that, actually this article here that I referenced does talk a little bit about some of those strains. So that might be something that you want to dive in a little bit deeper on. One question that I did want to, I get this question a lot, so I thought that I would just address it in case anyone had it. I get asked a lot, how, like for maintenance, let's say someone, has pretty good gut health, maybe they've done some testing, maybe they've undergone a protocol, but then for maintenance, in terms of probiotics, how many CFUs should you be getting a day? The general recommendation on that is somewhere between 10 to 20 billion CFUs. And that's really just for maintenance. Now, that can come from food. That doesn't have to come from a supplement. That could come from food, even better if it comes from food, right? But if you think of all of those foods, and I couldn't quote you how many would be based product to product, of course, how many CFUs are in each of those foods, because then that also depends on the serving size. But yogurts generally are known to have around 5 to 6 billion CFUs. If you take that into consideration, you can see we would want them to be eating, multiple foods a day that have probiotics in them. Now, if you're working with somebody on, maybe you've done some stool testing and you're working with them to restore balance, you may be using a much higher CFU. You may be using even up to 250 billion CFUs. So that could, vary quite a bit. But I just wanted to mention that because I do get asked that question a lot. Okay, 2 more probiotic supplements before we talk just briefly about postbiotics. 2 more probiotic supplements that are very common that we use quite often are Saccharomyces boulardii. Now, this is not a bacteria-based probiotic. This is a yeast-based probiotic. I love Saccharomyces boulardii. You can actually get it in foods like some yogurts, kombucha, kefir, and also some cheeses have S. boulardii in them. But the things that I love it for are, it is very supportive to the immune system. So if you have someone who has a low secretory IgA and indicating a weak immune system, S. boulardii is great for that. It helps to trigger immune cells like T cells, monocytes, lymphocytes, granulocytes. So it's great for that. It also has data showing that it is very supportive in eradicating Candida and H. pylori. If you have clients with any of those things, I would encourage you to maybe consider some S. boulardii. Another great thing is it actually can be given with antibiotics. It's not bacteria based. It's not going to be contraindicated to be given with antibiotics. And then spore-based probiotics. So spore-based probiotics, these contain endospores, and endospores are just protective outer casings that allow the bacteria to travel safely to the large intestine. So basically, the bacteria travels through the gastrointestinal tract to an environment that seems hospitable. And then the spores release the bacteria. And so they're acid resistant and they're heat resistant. These very much improve gut permeability. Generally, most of your spore-based probiotics are going to have one of two or possibly both strains in them, and that is Bacillus and Clostridia. Those are the most common spore-based strains. These are really good options for patients who have what we call a maldigestive pattern on their stool test, or maybe someone who has small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. These can be a good option for them as well. Now, there is some thought that these can proliferate too rapidly in some individuals and cause issues. These would be people with compromised immune systems. Also, people, generally, we don't give these a lot to very young children or the elderly because, again, they have the potential to overproliferate in those populations. So just something to consider. And then one thing that I did not include in here, but I just wanted to mention it, is there is a term, I'm sure you've heard it, called synbiotics. And synbiotics are when we have either probiotics and prebiotics taken together, or a product that has both prebiotic and probiotic in them. And so the prebiotics, again, help the growth of the probiotic. So it's basically a synergistic effect. And those are often referred to as synbiotics. Okay. Now, lastly, I want to quickly talk about postbiotics. Another way that probiotics help to reduce pathogenic organisms in the gut is by releasing these bioactive compounds called postbiotics. So these are not, unlike probiotics, they're not live bacteria. They're not prebiotics, which are nutrients. Postbiotics are like the end product, basically, of what happens when we combine prebiotics and probiotics and the different chemical reactions that happen in the body. And so a couple of things I have listed here in ways that they are supportive is that they help to produce bacterial metabolites, short-chain fatty acids, functional proteins, extracellular polysaccharides, and they help to really reduce inflammation. Now, postbiotics are a little bit of a newer concept. There's more and more research being done on the benefits of postbiotics and the full spectrum of health. But we do know a few things already, that postbiotics have been shown to support gastrointestinal health through lowering inflammation, especially in people with inflammatory bowel disease. They have been shown to improve symptoms in patients with IBS, with irritable bowel syndrome. And then also they help to strengthen the intestinal barrier and improve our immune response. So again, just some really important benefits. And then lastly, this is an article diving a little bit deeper into probiotics and the effects, which they state here as immune modulating, anti-inflammatory, antioxidant, and also anti-cancer benefits. Now, lastly, and then I'm going to take a quick look at the Q&A and answer some questions in there. But a way that if you're listening to this and maybe you're not already working with patients on their gut health and doing any type of testing in your practice, one of the best ways that we can learn where are patients at, especially in terms of their good and commensal bacteria, and then of course, are there pathogenic organisms present, is by doing a comprehensive stool test. My favorite comprehensive stool test is the GI map. And I know Adrienne mentioned this. at the beginning of the class, but we do have two boot camps actually coming up. The first one starts October 14th. This one, I did put a link to it here. And I think there was a link in the chat as well. This one's already open for registration. We will be having another one starting on November the 11th. So be on the lookout for that if you're interested, and you can sign up for that one if that time frame works better for you. But you get a free test. So you get to test yourself. The cost of the boot camp, the 6-week boot camp with 6 live Q&A classes, is $395. The cost of the test is $389. So really, it's basically like getting a free test. So I would encourage you, if you're looking to learn more about gut health, about how to, we review very comprehensively in this boot camp how to interpret the test and what the findings mean. And then if you are looking to learn a little bit more about creating protocols, maybe you've already taken one of the boot camps and you understand the basics, but you're wanting more guidance on specific cases, protocols, how to really treat conditions like H. pylori, Candida, parasites, SIBO, IBS, you can join my gut health mentorship program. It's a 90-day mentorship, and it covers all of this content plus business building and business development. The cost is $249 a month for 3 months. So it's a 90-day program. The next cohort starts October the 14th. I've put a link here. And then there's also a December cohort. And I'm going to post all of those links in the chat here in just a second, so you can have access to those. You can also reach out to me if you have any questions about that. I put my information here. Also, certainly reach out to Rupa University if you have any questions for them. And then I also have included a few pages of references for you all.
Welcome to Rupa Health, the best place to order, manage, and track results from over 30 different lab companies in one single place for free. It's going to take you under 2 minutes to sign up, and you can order any functional medicine lab for your client in under 30 seconds. Let me show you how it's done. So here's our beautiful interface. I'm typing in the name of my client, selecting the lab that I want to order for them, and hitting send. From there, Rupa and their amazing team handle the rest. They email the client, collect payment, and even offer an interest-free 3-month payment plan. We've also built the world's largest library of information about chronic health conditions, the lab tests that can help you find the root cause, and the evidence-based interventions that you can use to help people heal from them. It's called the Rupa Health Magazine. There, we have in-depth articles about almost any health condition you can imagine. And we give you step-by-step protocols that other clinicians have used to help their clients heal and that are verified by evidence-based sources. You should totally check it out, and it'll transform your practice. And we can't wait to see you. So make sure you sign up today at rupahealth.com.